So it's been really interesting switching from operating to venture side. Tons to learn. It's a whole new muscle. Um, One of the things I think, one of the things I've seen a bunch, not just in hardware, but people start building something they think is kind of cool without knowing why they're building it yet. And I think you especially see it in hardware because it's this new thing and it's like super fun and things that couldn't be built before are suddenly being built. But with all these things, you have to ask why. And so I see a lot of decks starting with like, well, here's the thing we've built and here's why it's cool. Here's the features on it. Here's the team and like, here's kind of the early growth and we're raising $10 million. And you're like, well, why, right? Like anyone can get an early adopter market. That part can happen. You can see something grow to 1 million or 2 million users, maybe at least in software, probably harder in hardware, pretty quickly, and then never see the 3 millionth or 4th millionth user. And I think what you have to keep going back to is this like concept of motivation and why, and start with like, what is the problem in the world you're solving? And if you can't articulate that incredibly well, and then understand the size of that even now and over time, that's like the fundamental thing you have to figure out. And if I can't understand that in the deck and I can't understand that in the pitch of what someone's saying, and they can't articulate it that well, that concerns me about investing in it because you're gonna have to keep coming back to solving this product. The first thing you build is probably not gonna be the right thing. And you gotta kind of know where you're pointed in the universe to know that like, okay, well that first one didn't work out, but I know that problem exists and I know that I learned from this one. I'm gonna scrap part of that thing, I'm gonna rebuild around the core that worked, but I'm still gonna go solve that thing because I know the audience and I know what motivates them. And so I think it's really important sometimes to go back and keep thinking that through, like put it up on the wall, like know who your user is, know what they're dealing with every day, and keep coming back to that because you can start getting like so nose down, like, oh, if we just add that other feature, that'd be really cool. And you're like, well, that was built for 2% of our audience cares about that feature. And now we just wasted 3 or 4 weeks and a bunch of our money, and now our thing costs more, and the rest of the users aren't going to get value out of it. So really be thinking through like what's the minimum viable thing you can build that has the most impact in a specific space that has a need. Hardware in general, trying to think of other stuff. So Redpoint has done hardware stuff in the past. We did Sonos, we've recently done Coin. Coin was a really interesting one because he was a software engineer before and just decided he wanted this thing to exist in the world and taught himself how to manufacture it on his own. So the original prototypes are this like kind of piece of card with just tons of wires off of it, and he was figuring out it's awesome. I love seeing that because it's like someone found a passion what they want to do, and they just went so deep in learning how to go build that thing that they figured out instead of having to like just get up a team around them because you want that depth of knowledge, especially from a founder in a certain space. That was really cool. So I think people are investing in hardware. You definitely you got to be thinking through some of the macro stuff, and you guys would know this better than me, so it's kind of uneducated on my side. But a lot of the stuff I get fearful of is I see like Bluetooth Low Energy is a good one. So I think of that as a really interesting and fundamental new space. To have anything pushed onto 400 million phones is just like as software is a really like, that's a huge change. Okay, so now what does that mean for unlocking in the ecosystem? Well, it can mean beacons, but you saw a bunch of companies up building beacons and I'm like, and those things are just gonna be like turned over to China. China's gonna make them for like, a penny on your dollar. Like that's not a business over time. And if you think you're making a business on just that, that's really scary. But so maybe you start with that, but that's the then leg into building the software that then goes and makes sense of all of it. And maybe that still is something you build out and you make those uniquely better than China. I don't know, but like I see a lot of pitches coming in where they get first into the market, but you got to know the dynamics of the global manufacturing space and where some of the like low end stuff without a lot of intelligence in them can get shipped off really easily and made really cheaply. And then if you can also assume that you're like, okay, well if they're going to be everywhere, then what's the next level service that you're going to need in there? It's probably analytics on top of it, or it's probably services to make that more usable for brands, whatever it is, right? And be thinking through that kind of next level because I think it's so early in the hardware thing and it's exciting to watch, and we'll start to see how these things kind of meter out. But be thinking one step ahead because I think it'll be when you're in the wild west of new space, you got to be thinking through how the big plates are going to move.
Is that a mindset though of hardware that this can be copied and your decision is less tenable? Is that a
No, I don't think it's of all hardware. We've seen some really unique stuff. So we did the Coin investment for sure. That could be done somewhere else, but they're building a brand around it. They do have IP. Like it's possible. I think you just gotta know where in that spectrum you sit of like the complexity of things and how much of a brand you're gonna have and how much does this thing just need. So the Bluetooth beacons, those need to exist everywhere, right? Like in order for that whole ecosystem to work, those things have to be super low cost. And if you're gonna try and fight China on like low cost, you're screwed. It's like trying to fight Amazon on like low cost e-commerce. You're not going to win. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I don't think it's, you might get that view at some venture firms and with some partners. I think there is still some intrepidation around hardware and just trying to figure it out because people aren't educated on it yet. But I think people understand the opportunity. There's enough good examples out there that you at least have stuff to point to.